take two, and it's better because it's a little quieter. So I'm making this video today because I have had an idea stuck in my head all day long. It's been kind of just turning around, and I've been, letting it simmer and kind of writing about it, making notes about ways that I can make my services more accessible by people of all financial situations. Now, this is really important for me because if you can't tell, and maybe if you're not on the email list yet and haven't gotten a whole lot of sense about how I approach photo history and how I encourage my students to approach photo history, I think that it's incredibly important that everyone think about preserving their family photos. Excuse me. I've got a loud truck about to go by. It's incredibly important. It's important that people completely lost my train of thought. Okay, let's rewind for a second. Are any of you who are watching this like into ancestry and doing your family tree and tracing back generations and generations and generations and generations? And if you trace back far enough, you eventually get to a point where it's like, oh, I was related to a king, or oh, I was related to a queen or some famous noble person I'm the 21st great grandchild of, or something like that. There's like a structural historical reason for that, and it's because way back then it was only people of certain classes whose lineages were recorded. Does that make sense? If you look far enough back in history, you don't get the lived daily experience of many peasants, right? Because they weren't literate, and they probably didn't have the means of recording something, or even if they were literate and did have some pen and paper and some books, they didn't have vaults to keep them in, right? So I'm kind of giving this example to lay or to establish the way that what am I trying to say? Who has had access to have their family information archived? I mean, obviously way, way, way in the past, it was just nobility, because they had to prove bloodlines and stuff. At some point it may have been, people who had a little bit more money than that, obviously, people who had property because they had a legacy or property or money that had to, go to their family. So it was important for them to establish their family connections, their family tree. Now here's where I'm going to start talking about money a little bit, and how I'm going to relate all of this, hopefully in a way that makes sense, to the way I'm thinking about my pricing structure. So if you've ever gone onto my website, photoxo.net, there's a whole page that's dedicated to services and pricing. And the way I have that set up is by project type, because I'm a one-person business, and there aren't comparatively, there aren't that many other people doing what I'm doing. So I don't have a lot of comps, right? I don't have a lot of industry comparisons to make in terms of whether it's better to do an hourly rate, whether it's better to do a project rate. So So I just have worked and kind of intuited my way into something that feels right for me and feels right for my clients. And generally, this is something that works. So if you visit that site, photoexo.net / I think it's services-pricing, or you can just get there through the menu, you will see that none of my services are inexpensive. In fact, in the past, I have thought of I've thought of my business as a luxury industry, and I embraced that. But as someone who comes from a working class family, and not just working class, but I would say lower middle class, possibly at times, I mean, I don't know much about our financial situation when I was a kid, but I remember we had some tough times. So, there's times when we were probably skirting the poverty line, if I had to guess. That's where I come from. That is the sort of economic strata of my family. So I recognize that the pricing that as I have said it, is excluding a lot of people. And I don't like it because I have a strong belief that people, especially people of underrepresented groups, whether that be an underrepresented economic class, whether that be an underrepresented ethnic class, whether that be an underrepresented religious class, whether that be an underrepresented gender or sexuality expression, it is imperative that people of different experiences have their stories recorded. And the reason, I can, as a historian, I can say, and as a professor, I can say this is imperative because this is what I'm teaching now. So the history of photography, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to give you a rundown of the class, but a lot of times the way it's taught is the way a lot of art history is taught, which is, it was a history that was written down in the 1950s by white men, and it is very often a history of the achievements of white men. Now, photography is the most democratic art form, and even going beyond the art in, I'm in the art history department, so obviously I think about art, but going beyond that, photography is a visual language that allows every one of us to picture ourselves the way we want to be pictured. That democraticness of photography is something that is so important to me, and that as I teach my class, as I have taught my class the last few years, it's a theme that becomes more and more key every time I teach it. I spend a little more time talking about the difference between what it's like when we have the ability to picture ourselves versus what it's like when we are pictured by or objectified by other groups that have power. Okay, so this is a value, a core value of mine, that we all exercise our ability right now with photography to self-fashion, to determine how we want the world to see us. And the other side of that coin is making sure that those stories are preserved, and making sure that those stories don't get lost because someone couldn't afford to back them up, or they don't get lost because someone couldn't afford to have them scanned. Okay, so this is, this is like my inner core belief that I have not yet thought of a way, until today, I had not yet thought of a way to be able to work into my business in a way that I could both sustain myself, sustain my needs to live, and also offer something at a price scale, maybe even a sliding scale, that is more accessible to more people. Okay, I thought it would be a good idea to record to get the nice sunset light, but it's I'm starting to lose my light, so let me not drag this out too much. So part of what I've been thinking about today is how do I realistically implement a sliding scale system? And the answer to that lies in taking advantage of the times that my clientele is able to pay the price on the website. Okay, so this has a little bit to do with a podcast that I listened to recently, where someone was talking about, how do you, as a one-person business, how do you decide where your price point is? And you might feel bad charging $3,000 because it's not accessible. So instead you charge $2,000, and then you kind of have to hustle a little bit more, and you're not quite happy because you're not making enough. And honestly, $2,000 is still not accessible for a lot of people, right? And I really took that to heart, because in my opinion, the way that I have priced my services at this point, in the past I've had hourly options, I've had a whole bunch of kind of like levels where it's like, do you have this many photos? It's this much. Do you have this many photos? It's this much. And none of that was working either for me or my clients, because ultimately it presented a whole lot of barriers for them. And people were getting hung up on, oh, well, I want to, I don't want to give you 1,000 photos because I want to be under that price break or whatever. And I'm not interested in like, it needs to be easier because the work needs to be done. That's what I want. I want the work to be done. So the pricing structure that you'll see now, and honestly, I think it's working in a way that I'm going to stick with this structure. So the pricing structure is based on what exactly you want done, not on quantity. But again, you'll see that it is in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, and that depends on what time of year it is, because during hurricane season, I'm charging more, because if I have to take in your photos into my possession during hurricane season, then I need to take some extra precautions to make sure that, they're safe with me. I prefer not to take in new photos during hurricane season. So that's why the price is higher during hurricane season, because I live in Florida. Okay, all of that being said, I finally, it clicked with me how to kind of offer this sliding scale system, or how to take into account the fact that I want clients who are not only able to pay luxury service. I want to serve clients who are immigrants. I want to serve clients who, have to tell a story of, their family that didn't end in $1 million mansion. I want to tell all those stories too. I want all of those stories to be preserved. So I figured out the way to do it is to leave my prices as they are. I'm going to have always a number of clients that see that price and say, that's a great deal. And honestly, it is. Like, that price is not, it's not outrageous for what you get, right? People always are going to judge whether they think it's too expensive or not based on how they value their own photos. It has nothing to do with how I price it. It has to do with how you, as the potential client, how you value the work that's going to be done, how you value the end result. So my prices are staying my prices. Now, what's changing is that you will see, and the reason I'm recording this today is because I'm recording this at a time when I'm going to offer a limited, very limited, slightly lower price. I guess slightly lower. It's significantly lower, but it's still going to be, it's not as low as I hope to get for some of you. So I just want to say, some of you are going to see the sale price that I'm offering right now, and you're going to say, oh, that's still too much. I see you, I hear you, I know you exist. I'm working on it. Just trust me. I'm going to get a full sliding scale set up so that what you can pay is what I will be able to do the work for. Okay, I'm seriously losing my light here and everything's getting more green. Spooky. So I got a little ahead of myself again. Let me rewind just again. So the way to subsidize, the way that I'm going to be able to subsidize this sliding scale is by, as needed, as possible, when I am when I get clients who are paying the advertised rate on the website, very often I will have to rent special equipment to do a certain job. So the way that I'm going to enable or support this sliding scale system is that when I get a full paying client and I have to rent special equipment, I am going to offer additional people who have the same job that special equipment needs to come in, and so that I can get the most use out of renting that equipment. The client who has paid full price gets their thing done happily, and other people who maybe need the work done but are not in a financial position to pay full price can come to me during those times. So when you see that I have a price reduction, when I'm talking about a price reduction, this is where it's coming from. The amount of work I'm doing is exactly the same. The type of work I'm doing is exactly the same. When you see that I'm advertising a limited time price reduction, it's because I have the ability to do this job right now with this equipment that I have for a limited time, and I'm offering you to get in on it at a reduced price. Okay, so that's how these price reductions function. And I mean, when it hit me today, I was finally just like, this makes complete sense, and it's the easiest thing in the world, because it's allowing my business to invite more people to do the work with me, invite more people to have their family memories preserved, which is just so important. That's why I do this job. And it doesn't take away from my time. It actually makes it easier for me. So it's still time that I don't have to hustle to get another client. So I think this is win-win-win. And I think that this is something that I want to try a lot. I'm really excited to announce it and roll it out. So again, I'm recording this because right now I'm about to enter into a special price reduction period. So it's going to be very short term. It's because I have to rent a high volume scanner. It's a scanner that I don't have here usually, which high volume scanner means that I can scan a lot of photos very quickly. So I'm going to be opening up a limited time price reduction. Now, it is, like I said, it is important to me that the people who need it are the people who are taking advantage of this. So as I was turning this idea over in my head today, a few terms kept coming to me, like over and over again, that I want to be sure to relate to how I'm going to move forward with determining these sliding scale, eligibility, and stuff like that. I would love it to eventually be, kind of pay what you want type system, but we're not there yet. I'm still a one person company who has to support a one person company with big growth goals. So the two terms that I keep thinking of are, one of them is legacy. We hear the term legacy a lot. I've been watching, sorry about that. I've been watching The Watchmen on HBO, and I don't know if any of y'all have been watching it, but legacy is a huge theme in Watchmen, and so it's been on my mind a lot. And when you think about legacy, when you think about the legacy that you as an individual today received from your ancestors, legacy can be received in many ways. Some of us received property as a legacy. Some of us received money as a legacy. Some of us did not receive anything except photographs as a legacy. And those are the people that I am really interested in serving with this idea of a sliding scale. I'm one of those people, and I honestly don't even, you've all heard the story of my grandmother and the hot water heater, but I don't even have that many photos as a family legacy. Shit happens. And although I don't have, again, I'm relating this to me personally because, it means a lot to me. But when I think about myself, I don't have a legacy of property or money from my family. However, I do still have a legacy of certain privileges. I have a legacy of receiving an education. I have the legacy of having been born in this country, and I have the legacy of having had my ancestors many generations back born in this country. So when I think about legacy, I do think about these, this kind of chain or mesh of privileges that I have simply as a result of the randomness of when and where I was born. So what I really want to do is to aid and serve people who do not have all of those legacies that I do and more, and that possibly don't even have the privileges that I've experienced. In my history of photo class, I teach about the Japanese internment, and we look at photos of the Japanese American internment in concentration camps in California during World War II. And I think a lot about the way that these were, in some cases, in many cases, well, in some cases it was immigrants of that generation, but in other cases it was American-born individuals of Japanese ancestry whose property and legacy, when you think about legacy in monetary terms and capital terms, their property was seized and they were sent to camps for years, and their property wasn't returned, their legacy wasn't returned. So it's stories like those that I think about that are incredibly important, and that, that's who I want to connect with. I don't think it's too controversial either to talk about the legacy of slavery in this country, and the fact that economically African Americans are at kind of by average a severe disadvantage. So I'm an individual, I'm just one person, and there's not a lot that one person can do in terms of trying to right these wrongs. But something I can do is connect with those people, connect with people who want to be able to tell their story for generations to come, and I can offer them my services at a rate that they can have access to, and that I take that very seriously as something that I, as one person, can do to, I can't do anything to right the wrongs, but it's something that I can do to make an effort, right? Right. That's all we can do is make an effort. So, I don't want to make a list of who I'm hoping to reach in terms of this sliding scale, but let me just say that if you believe that this applies to you, then it probably does. So, like I said, I'm not going to have like an application process or anything. It's just me. But please do take advantage of a reduced price when you see one that resonates with you. Like I said, it's not always going to be the same price. It's not always going to be, at least for right now, I can't say when it's going to happen because it depends on when I get a full price paying client. But look for them, because every time I have the option to now, I'm going to offer these reduced sliding scale options, because now I no longer see it as something that is something I have to figure out. I figured it out, and now I'm really, really excited to start working with people who I haven't worked with yet. So, okay, this has been a really long time, and look, it's dark now. I'm gonna switch the camera around so you can see the sunset. So there's there's the sunset. That's what I've been looking at every time you see me look off to my right. That's what I've been looking at. It's so pretty. It's such a nice view. Okay. Okay. So I'm probably going to put this video up on the website. I've made it into a video because I want to use it for reference, especially if anyone has any questions about why I price things the way I do. Like I said, it hasn't happened yet necessarily, but I do occasionally get the inquiry about whether a sale is coming up, and I've never thought of my work in those terms, because the price that I pay is the price. The price that I pay is it's already taking into account so many things. So I've been reluctant to have like sales or even times of reduced prices. But now this changes everything. This is rather than having it be affiliated with a certain time when I'm trying to get more business or whatever, it's now affiliated with my values that I hold dear, and it's affiliated with a way that I see that I can help more people tell their stories and help more people make sure that their family memories make it to future generations, so that other people can know your stories, because your story is important. Your individual story is important, and the story of all your individuals in your family is also important. And I would say especially for people who have had family go through some serious hardships, and it's definitely those people that I want to reach. So you hear sailor barking. Time to go. Bye.